Well, good evening everyone, and welcome to podcast number 3 of the Robert Burns Coffee Time podcast. And today we're going to be talking about Agnes Burness, or Agnes Brune, whichever you prefer. So Agnes Brune, or Agnes Burness, was born on the 17th of March, 1732. She was the mother of Scotland's national bard, Robert Burns. Agnes's father, Gilbert, was the tenant of a 300-acre farm at Craigington in Kirkoswald parish. For those of you who don't know, that's in South Ayrshire, Scotland. Now there's a wee bed and breakfast called the Whitestone Cottage on the Coxine estate in Ayrshire, which claims to be Agnes's birthplace. However, she was christened at Kirkoswald, which is very close to Craigington Farm. When Agnes was very young, she attended what was known in those days as a dame school. I suppose you could say that's a wee bit like a primary school for 3 to 5 years old. It was held in the Weaver's Cottage. It was there that she learned her psalms by heart. She also acquired basic reading skills, but unfortunately did not learn to write. In fact, it said she couldn't even write her own name. Agnes was just 10 years of age when her mother, Agnes Rainey, died. As the oldest of the 6 children, Agnes spent the next 2 years looking after the family. Now in 1744, after her father had found a new wife, she was sent to live in Maybole with Jean Rainey, her maternal grandmother. Now Agnes's grandmother was a treasure trove of oral tradition, including Scottish songs and ballads. These influenced Agnes greatly and encouraged her to pass them on to her own children. Now Agnes's father, Gilbert, remarried twice. He must have liked wedding cake, as we say in Scotland. His second wife, Margaret Blaine, and his third, Catherine Mott. It's no secret that Agnes had no great liking for her stepmothers. It's well documented, the latter of whom was several years younger than her. And I mean several years younger. Now in a lot of ways this could explain why Robert had little or no contact with his maternal grandfather. No doubt his mother's views on this subject were instilled into him, like the many stories and songs she sang to him. Now the first person Agnes ever went out with was a guy called Willie Nelson. He was a ploughman that she worked beside. They were together for 7 long years and became engaged. But Agnes broke off the engagement due to his infidelities, or as some Burns biographers put it, an indiscretion on Nelson's part. It's thought that Agnes first met William Burns, who at the time was 11 years her senior, remember, at the Maybole Fair in 1756. They were to marry on the 3rd of December 1757 in Ayr. And they both settled in Alloway, living in a clay cottage that William had both designed and built. William called the cottage New Gardens, but his son preferred the name the Old Clay Biggin. And so it begins. Now, there's not many paintings of Agnes about. We can only guess how she looked from descriptions given by her daughter Isabella. And she described her mother as, in inverted commas, was rather under the average height, inclined to plumpness, but neat, shapely, and full of energy, having a beautiful pink and white complexion, a fine square forehead, pale red hair but dark eyebrows and dark eyes, often ablaze with a temper difficult to control. Her disposition was naturally cheerful, her manner easy and collected, her address simple and unpresuming, and her judgment uncommonly sound and good. She possessed a fine musical ear and sang well. Now at this stage, I think we'll have a wee break for a song. And today's guests are Davy Hunter and Beatrice Clark. They're going to give us their version of John Anderson, My Joe. It was written in 1789 and included in James Johnson's Scots Musical Museum. The gist of the song is the effect of ageing on the body. For instance, your locks were like the raven, your bonny brow was bent, but now your brow is belt, John. Your locks are like the snow. But who was this guy Burns wrote about? John Anderson was born in 1748 in Ayrshire and died on May the 4th, 1832 in Invergarry. He was a Scottish carpenter by trade. He was a very close friend of Robert's, and strangely he is reputed to have built his own coffin in 1796. Now that's what I call planning for the future. Take it away, Davy and Beatrice.
John Anderson, my Joe, John, when we were first acquainted, your locks were like the raven, your bonny brow was bright, but now your brow is belt, John, your locks are like the snow, but blessings on your thrusting brow, John Anderson, my Joe. John Anderson, my Joe, John, we climbed the hill together, and many a canty day, John, we've had in another, but we must totter down, John, and in hand we'll go, and sleep together at the fat, John Anderson, my Joe. John Anderson, my Joe, John, when we were first acquainted, your locks were like the raven, your bonny brow was bright, but now your brow is belt, John, and locks are like the snow, but blessings on your frosted brow, John Anderson, my Joe.
Agnes is said had a pivotal role in helping cultivate the family's 5 acres at Alloway's new gardens, keeping poultry, growing vegetables and making cheeses, using milk from the cattle the family kept. So all being said, the family never went hungry under her watch. They may not have had meat very often, but they did eat every day. Now in 1767, about a year after moving to Mount Oliphant Farm, Agnes gave birth to William Burns on the 30th of July, followed by John on the 10th of July 1769, and Isabel, or Isabella as she preferred to be called, on the 27th of July 1771. Now when Agnes's husband William died at the age of 62, in 1784, she went to live with her son Gilbert at Mossgiel and stayed there until 1798, and then lived at Dinning in Nivesdale for 2 years before they moved to Grant Sprays in East Lothian. Agnes died aged 87 and is buried in the churchyard in Bolton Parish Church, which I think is in East Lothian. Between them, Agnes and William had 7 children. 3 of them died before her. Of her many grandchildren, and there were a lot, at least 10 also died before her. This was a reflection of her own old age and the much shorter life expectancies in those days. Another wee point before we move on worth noting was Samuel Peacock, who we'll talk about in another podcast, was Burns's partner in the flax dressing business. He was reputedly said to have been a half-brother of Agnes. Whether there's any truth in that, I don't know. So how did Agnes influence Burns? Well, Agnes is credited with having a significant influence for developing his love of songs. There was one particular song she used to sing all the time. It is said to have been her favourite ballad and also that of Robert's. Here's a wee verse from it. Kissing is the key of love, and clapping is the lock, and making us the best thing that e'er a young thing got. A relative, Betty Davison, she was more credited with the stories and his poetic side. In my opinion, she was a greater influence. That being said, both of them were credited in influencing Robert in his writing or the revising of nearly 350 songs throughout his life. Apart from her gravestone, there's also another monument to her called Burns Mother's Well, which is near Bolton on the roadside from Haddington, East Lothian. The inscription on the well reads, "Drink of the pure crystals, and not only be you succoured, but also refreshed in the mind." Agnes Brune, 1732 to 1820. To the mortal and immortal memory and the noble tribute to her, who not only gave a son to Scotland, but to the whole world, and whose own doctrines he preached to humanity that we might learn. What more can a son ask from his mother? Okay everyone, that's us finished for today's podcast, and we're going to have Davy Hunter playing us out again, and this time Davy's going to be finishing with a karaoke version of Auld Lang Syne, so you can all join in this one. And I'll see you for the next podcast, hopefully next week, which will be about the young Burns. So till then, take care and lang be your lung reek.